My fiancée planned a secret wedding with her ex. So, I broke the engagement, kicked her out, and left her stranded. I'm 32, a guy with a stable job, a solid circle of close friends, and a strong sense of right and wrong. I've had my fair share of relationships, and they left me with a few scars, but I wasn't actively looking for anything serious until I met A couple of years back. She was charming, smart, and had this spontaneous streak that kept me on my toes. I liked her right away and thought we'd found something special. I talked a lot about her past, especially this one guy, her ex, who'd apparently destroyed her trust. According to her, the guy broke her heart and she had to rebuild herself afterward. I felt for her. I've been there myself. When someone you love betrays you, it changes the way you see people, and A made me feel like she understood that. We got close, and before I knew it, I was all in, thinking she was someone I could actually plan a future with. We got engaged a little over a year ago. The plan was to have a small wedding, just close family and friends. I was all in on the planning, and I let her handle most of the details since it seemed to make her happy. I trusted her, and we were supposed to be a team. But that trust was the first mistake in this whole mess. It was just about a month before our wedding. I came home one night after work, exhausted, and found A's phone buzzing on the couch. I didn't even think twice about glancing over to see who was texting her because, why not? We were about to be married. There shouldn't have been any secrets between us. But that one text changed everything. The notification said, "Confirmation for your wedding RSVP." I figured it was something about our wedding, so I unlocked her phone without even thinking. What I saw blew my mind. It was an email chain confirming A and X's wedding. The date? Just 2 days before our planned wedding. The location? A venue 2 states away from where we were supposed to get married. I was in shock. No, that doesn't even cover it. I felt like I'd walked into someone else's life. For a minute, I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe it was an old email or some misunderstanding. But as I scrolled up through the emails, I realized this wasn't some simple mistake. The chain went back months. A had been planning a whole other wedding with her ex, down to the last detail. Guest lists, caterers, even a freaking photographer. I sat there for an hour, maybe more, just reading through it all. Every email was like a punch in the gut. I couldn't believe she was capable of this level of deceit. But there it was, in her own words, all laid out. When she got home that night, I wanted to explode. But I needed more. I knew if I confronted her right away, she'd just spin some lie, and I didn't want to give her that chance. So, I played it cool, asked about her day, listened to her talk about our wedding plans. The whole time, she looked me right in the eyes, smiling like she wasn't lying to my face. The next couple of days, I kept my distance but watched her closer. Suddenly, a lot of things started making sense. Her frequent work trips to a city where her ex lived, the random calls and texts from contacts saved under weird nicknames like NS and BG. Every time she'd made some excuse about work or friends, it was all just another layer of lies. She told me that weekend she had to visit family. I didn't buy it, but I didn't say anything. After she left, I started digging a little deeper, and I opened her social media, scrolling through private albums she'd kept hidden. I was floored. There were photos of her with her ex, looking like they were still a couple, smiling, holding hands, captions like a new beginning and rekindling a future. She'd been living this double life right under my nose, and I'd been too blind to see it. I was done. Whatever love I felt for her had drained out completely. But I needed hard proof for when I confronted her. So I called up a friend who worked in private investigation, asked him to confirm some things. It felt wrong, sure, but at this point, I didn't trust her as far as I could throw her. A few days later, he came back to me with confirmation. She'd been traveling to her ex's city regularly, meeting him every time she told me she was out of town for work. They'd even toured a couple of wedding venues together. I knew what I had to do. She wasn't going to manipulate her way out of this, and I wasn't going to let her play me any longer. I waited for her next trip. She was on her way out the door, suitcase in hand, when I stopped her. "So are you going to keep pretending I don't know what's going on?" I asked, looking her straight in the eyes. She blinked, totally caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" she asked, forcing a nervous laugh. I didn't even bother answering. I held up my phone, showing her screenshots of the emails between her and her ex, the RSVPs, all of it. Her face went pale, and then, just like that, she switched gears. She crossed her arms and shot me this defiant look, like I was the one in the wrong. "You went through my phone? That's an invasion of privacy," she said, voice laced with indignation. "How am I supposed to trust someone who doesn't respect my boundaries?" Unbelievable. Here she was, planning a wedding with another guy, and she had the audacity to make this about my trust issues. "Boundaries," I repeated, incredulous. "You're planning a wedding with your ex, and I'm the one with trust issues." She rolled her eyes. "It's not what it looks like. You're overreacting. I wasn't actually going to go through with it. I just needed closure." Her tone was dismissive, like this was just a minor issue she could brush off. "Closure?" I said, barely containing my rage. "Closure is having coffee with someone one last time, not planning a wedding behind your fiancé's back." She shrugged, not an ounce of remorse in her expression. "I just wanted to be sure. I needed to know I was making the right choice, okay? You're my first choice, obviously, but I didn't want to throw everything away for someone who might not stay." She looked at me like she expected me to sympathize with her, as if I'd see the logic behind her actions. But all I saw was someone who had no idea what love or loyalty meant. "Then go be with your first choice," I said, dead calm, grabbing her suitcase and tossing it out the front door. "He can give you all the security you need." She gaped at me, shock and anger warring on her face. "You're actually throwing me out?" she demanded, as if the idea was impossible to fathom. "Yes, and if you think I'm paying for anything else after this, you're delusional." Her face twisted in fury, but then, in a split second, she smirked, as if she'd found one last card to play. "You're really going to do this to our child?" she said, placing a hand on her stomach. I froze. "What are you talking about?" She smiled slyly. "I'm pregnant. You're really going to abandon your own child?" I stared at her, and for a second, a sick feeling twisted in my stomach. But something didn't feel right. "If that's true, we'll get a test done," I said flatly, not buying it for a second. Her eyes flickered, just for a moment, before she shrugged. "Fine, maybe you're not worth it anyway." And with that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I had no idea if the pregnancy was real or just another ploy, but at this point, I didn't care. I was done. The following days were a barrage of texts and emails. She claimed I owed her financial support because she'd uprooted her life for me. She said I was financially responsible for her well-being because she'd made sacrifices. When I ignored her, she escalated, accusing me of abandoning her and withholding emotional support. Then she took it a step further. She started contacting mutual friends, spinning this story about how I'd left her stranded with no warning. She called me a manipulative abuser who pushed her away after she'd given up everything. When our friends heard my side of the story, most saw through her lies. But a few were sucked in, even accusing me of emotional abuse for not helping her. She even spread rumors that I was abandoning her and our child. I had to explain myself more times than I could count, but I showed everyone the proof, her emails, the RSVPs, and photos. While most people sided with me, a few of her loyal friends still believed her story. The final straw was the day she showed up at my workplace. She came right to the reception desk, asking for me by name, claiming I had ruined her life and abandoned her with no support. She made a whole scene, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. Security had to escort her out, but not before she'd screamed about me, leaving her and our baby, and calling me every name in the book. Later, she contacted HR and tried to file some kind of complaint, claiming I had financially manipulated her and emotionally mistreated her. HR called me in, and I had to sit there, explaining the whole twisted story with every detail laid out. Thankfully, they understood, and her complaints went nowhere, but the damage to my reputation was done. Word got around, and I could feel the judgment from a few colleagues who didn't know the whole story. She didn't stop there. She found out who my closest friends were and started reaching out to them individually, trying to paint herself as the victim, insisting I'd abandoned her and our child. She begged for their sympathy, calling them crying, telling them I'd left her with nothing. She even tried to get them to pressure me into taking her back, or at the very least, give her money to support her pregnancy. But I was done playing into her games. I told every single person the truth, showed them every piece of evidence, and let them decide for themselves. Then she hit a new low. She sent me a formal demand for compensation through her lawyer. Yes, compensation. She claimed she'd sacrificed her life to be with me, invested time, energy, and love, and that I owed her money for emotional damages and time wasted. When I laughed this off, she hinted that if I didn't settle things her way, she'd make sure my reputation was ruined. She started hinting that she'd take this to court if she had to, that she'd make me pay for what I did. The sheer audacity of it all was almost impressive. Here was a woman who'd betrayed me, planned a secret wedding with her ex, and now expected me to pay for her life falling apart. She truly believed she was entitled to something from me, as if I'd wronged her in some way. The final trick came when she tried one last time to guilt me. She sent an email telling me she was moving on, but that she was still hurt by how things ended and hoped I'd realize how deeply I'd wronged her. She went on about how she was going to focus on herself and heal from all the trauma I'd put her through. It was almost comical. Here was a woman who'd systematically deceived me for months, and now she was acting as though she was the one who needed to recover from me. I ignored it all, blocked her on every platform, and made sure my lawyer knew about every single interaction. Thankfully, she eventually stopped, probably realizing she'd milked this situation dry. Her twisted sense of entitlement, her ability to manipulate and lie without missing a beat, it was terrifying to see up close. Looking back, I don't know what hurt more, the betrayal or the way she tried to turn the tables, acting as though I was the villain in her story. I realized just how naive I'd been, how much I'd let my guard down. But if there's one thing I learned, it's that trust is earned, not freely given. And sometimes the people you think you know the best are the ones capable of hurting you the most. To anyone out there dealing with toxic people who feel entitled to your life, your money, your happiness, cut them off, no matter how hard it is. Trust me, they don't deserve a second of your time. And if you like hearing stories about dodging relationship disasters, subscribe and stick around. You never know what kinds of wild things people are capable of.